Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host today, Mike Petuli. This is Canadian Bowler episode number 32. I'm here joined by my co-host, Daryl Fitzgerald. How's it going there today, Daryl?
Hey, Mike. Good to be back. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's one of the, I guess one of your first ones in a long while there. Got the little baby to take care of now.
That's right. He's a handful. I don't hear any crying, so I think we're good for now, but Eric is taking care of him, and you just hope that he's going to be a good little boy for at least for the morning.
Give us a little bit of time to get the podcast through here and then get you back to daddy work, I guess.
Exactly.
Okay, before we get into things here, just wanted to remind everyone to like, comment, and subscribe on our videos here today. Daryl and I were looking at the YouTube data the other day, and currently we have about 5% of the people who view our videos actually subscribing. So subscribing really helps us out a bunch. So if you're able to, please hit that subscribe button. It helps direct the videos, get us a little more traffic to the channel for people maybe that are interested in lawn bowling, coaching, things like that. So please, if you're able to, hit that subscribe button. We're driving for 1,000 subscriptions by the end of the year here. We're slowly moving towards that goal, but any like or subscribe, everything helps. So please, if you can, give us a like, comment, subscribe. If you're not able to watch the video here today, we are also on most major podcast platforms. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever you might use, we're likely on there. So we'll be on there within the next day or two. So you can also check us out on those platforms as well. So, Daryl, I believe we have a special guest here today that we'd like to bring in.
Super special, yes.
So, without any further ado, we have Anna Mees from Bowls Canada joining us today. Welcome to the show, Anna.
Thanks, Mike and Daryl. It's great to be here. I'm super excited to chat with you guys. Fan of the show, so I've got little fan nerves going on, but it's going to be great.
Anna, we are so happy to have you on. Anytime we can get someone from BCB to come on and talk a little bit about what BCB does and some of the programs and stuff that go out, it's fantastic. And for just a disclaimer, she is my boss. So if anybody sees a posting go up for a national youth and development coach in the next week, you know why. All right.
Things didn't go well then, Daryl.
That's right.
I don't know, Daryl. I think I'm the one who needs to be nervous here because now, the situation is reversed here and you're in control. And I'm
That's
like,
true.
oh, no.
So I guess if we're getting started here, for someone who maybe doesn't know much about you, Anna, could you give us a little bit of a background of who you are and sort of how you got into, Bowls Canada and bowls in general?
Absolutely. So I am currently the Chief Executive Officer of Bowls Canada, and I've been with the organization for it was 8 years in June, so that's pretty exciting. And before that, my career has been in the not-for-profit sector of sport. So I've worked in sport now for almost 30 years.
Wow.
Worked for organizations started my career with the Canadian Association, what was then the Canadian Association for Physical Health Association, which is now PHE Canada. Did a stint with the Canadian Intramural Recreation Association, which is now part of PHE Canada. Spent some years with Canoe Kayak Canada. Spent a bulk of my time with the Coaching Association of Canada, and while I was there, I worked as a consultant that helped other national sports develop their national coaching certification program. And through there, I got to work with I was just shy of 45 individual sports. So I was really privileged to be able to do work with sports like tennis, hockey, curling, golf, broomball, and lawn bowls. So when I saw the job ad come up for lawn bowls, I was so intrigued. And I had always thought about bowls as being this massive, massive place of opportunity. And so when it came up, I was like, ooh, I'm really, should I not? So I decided I'd throw my hat in the ring. Lo and behold, got an interview. And when I walked away from the interview, I so vividly remember going home and talking to my husband and going, I really want this job. This just sounds like such an exciting place such an exciting opportunity to grow, and I really want to be a part of it. So that's kind of me in a nutshell and how I ended up here.
That's interesting, because when I talk to people about lawn bowls, usually excitement isn't the first adjective that comes to their mind until I show them and get them involved. But that's awesome. That's I actually had no idea that you were involved in so many other sports. I knew parts of your journey to bowls, but that's a lot of sports to actually have at least a finger in and be touching on.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I really feel that working in sport is a privilege, and I've really it's a privilege, and it's also a place of constant learning. And that, I think, is what's so great about it, and the opportunity to work with so many awesome people like yourselves. So yeah, no, bowls for me was always an exciting opportunity, and that, to me, right from the get-go, was what drew me to this position.
So I've got a big question for you that a lot of people ask, and even ask me, because I say, I'm a coach for Bowls Canada. What does Bowls Canada, BCB, do for bowlers and bowls clubs in Canada?
Great question. Essentially, so Bowls Canada is the national sport organization for lawn bowling in Canada. So what that means is that we are the recognized sport by the national, provincial, territorial, and local governments in the country. And really, our job at the highest level, our job is working to advance the sport of bowls in Canada. And what that looks like at the local level for the local club is that Bowls Canada is essentially a hub of development, and a hub of communication. So we work to do things like connecting the community through vehicles like our website, through our e-newsletter, This Week in Bowls. If you're not subscribed to that, go to bowlscanada.com, and there's a subscribe button for This Week in Bowls. We look to share best stories and connect the nation coast to coast, right? Canada is such a huge country, and as a result, we have challenges that, other than the US, a lot of countries don't have. And each individual province really could be its own country. And when we're trying to provide that connection and connect from coast to coast and from central out to the coast and up to the north, that's one of the roles of a national sport organization. The other thing that a national sport organization, and Bowls Canada in particular, does is we try to develop programs and resources that could be useful for all clubs. So when we're looking to develop things, we're looking to say, does it make sense to have one person develop this so 200 bowls clubs and 9 different provincial associations can use, versus having 200 individual groups try to recreate the same thing? So looking to try and share those, consolidate resources. So things like the National Coaching Certification Program. We look at, last year actually was a great example where, we had this horrible pandemic. We were all shut down. And one of the things that we all realized, all sport realized very quickly, that for us to return to our fields of play, we were going to need to have these return to play protocols. And although every single local health authority had they tweaked, there was a national standard. And so this was a place where Bowls Canada could develop a single set of return to play protocols that met that overall standard, that then each provincial association and each club from there could take and tweak. So rather than having to start from scratch and reinvent a wheel 200 times, it's this opportunity to say, here's a single wheel, take it and adjust the lengths of the spokes that make the most sense for you based on your local situation. So those are some examples. Other things we do, we work to promote the game. So some of the development of videos that we've done, the Bowls is Just Brilliant is a video that any club could pick up and use to play at. We've had clubs take them to seniors expos when they're trying to show what the game looks like, and they'll play that video. Things like the, well, I could just go on and on, but overall, what we're trying to do is advance the sport nationally so that it can be implemented locally.
I think that summarizes it very well.
Oh, that's a great answer for pretty loaded questions. So definitely lots of information there, and it's obvious what Bowls Canada does to a lot of people that are involved in the sport. So it's good to kind of get the deeper background context for maybe someone who's not so familiar. So thank you for that. I guess some of the questions we'd sort of prepared here for you. So what would be the thing you're most proud of with your 8 years with Bowls Canada? So 8 years now, as you said, what would you say is your most proud thing that you've sort of been a part of?
That is such a hard question, because honestly, there's so many things that I look back on and I feel really proud of. And I think that if I had to pick a single thing, it's really been the culmination of the growth of the organization. And when the ability of the organization as a whole has grown towards this skills-based governance and leadership, where it's working from a place of having a board of directors develop strategic vision and strategic leadership that then is implemented at a staff level. And that has the support and the collaboration of its membership, which are the provincial bodies. And all of that came together last year in this crisis of a pandemic with everything shutting down. And the fact that, we were able to get through this pandemic by supporting our members and their members to the best of our ability, relatively in good financial shape, meant that all of those years of the organization coming together to be an efficient and effective body all culminated in our survival of the pandemic last year. And not only of our ability to survive it, but our ability to pivot and to do things that to reach out and support our clubs. So we were able to do 2 really big research studies that helped us better understand the state of the nation with respect to our bowls clubs. And out of that came things, bowls clubs telling us, we know we need to be connecting virtually, but we don't know how. We don't have the tools and the technology. And so our communications coordinator, Casey Donnelly, said, I'm going to make a series of video tutorials. And out of that came essentially what we're calling the Club Engagement Kit, which you can find on our website, bowlscanada.com, under Club Development, Programs and Resources, where she put together, how do you use Facebook? How can you use a tool like Google to reach out and collaborate with your people? How can you make sure that, what are some ideas, virtual ideas for connecting with your community? And that all, having that all come together, having Jake, our Bowls development manager, sit back and say, okay, we're going to pivot into fundraising. We're in a revenue crisis, so we're going to really relook at that. And his ability to just pivot in that way was so exciting. Daryl, the work that you and Terry did to support our team, we went from gearing up to what was going to be a really exciting year of opportunity to nothing. Not only no competition, but for the majority, no bowling. And, how you and Terry worked to come together to say, okay, we're going to change things up. We're going to have video meetings. We're going to do some town halls. We're going to, enhance our integrated support network. That I think it all came together. And I was really proud of how we as a team, our board of directors, I mean, my gosh, the work that they did last year was outstanding. They were meeting at one point every week. And they put together a response team of directors that met every day for about 6 months, making sure that they had their finger on the pulse of what the organization needed, what the members needed. That the skill and the talent of our current board, again, I think really speaks to the evolution of the organization. People want to be a part of this organization now, and that's exciting. So I think I'm kind of proud of that. Yay!
And you should be. I mean, a lot of organizations, a lot of companies struggled during the pandemic, and whether they were prepared or not, things happened. And I think the response that you guys gave, the information that you gave out, the toolkits that you gave out was definitely helpful to a lot of clubs out there. And I'm sure they're thankful for that. So one of the programs, I don't know if it specifically came out of the pandemic, but during this time, something that you guys released was called Belonging in Bowls. Now, we touched on it here in the show a little bit when it first released, but I don't think we did it justice. So I'm hoping that maybe you can talk a little bit about the Belonging in Bowls program and what is the ultimate goal of going through that program.
All right, awesome. And anytime somebody talks about Belonging in Bowls, that's awesome. So I really thank you for bringing it up and putting it on your show, because it's a new program and we hope it's going to be an exciting program. But I love to talk about it, so thanks for the opportunity. So Belonging in Bowls really came about during the pandemic, but its roots came long before that. So, we'd been doing a lot of research over the last years and really starting to delve more into the research starting in about 2017 as to why is the membership, why are the numbers of people that we count participating in bowls, why is it stagnant? Why can't we get these growth? Like, to me, I said when I first started, I really saw this opportunity for growth. Everybody should be playing this game. It's accessible, it's inclusive, it's fun, it's strategic. So why aren't they? What's happening there? And when we looked at the overall numbers, so it's stagnant. So that means it's not growing beyond 1% and it's not shrinking beyond 1%. So we're holding the line, which is positive. But that also means that we are not retaining the numbers that we're recruiting. So why is that? So then we started to really look into what is the experience? What is that user experience when you come to the Bowls Club? And why is it that a province like Ontario, who did this fantastic research study in 2019 that looked at how great clubs are at recruiting, but not great at retaining? So why is it that just over 50% of the bowlers that are recruited each year, why don't they stay? And then further, when we look at our aging population and our aging demographic, we know that's shrinking. So we have to recruit and retain more than that shrinkage. So Belonging in Bowls took this concept that when you start to look into why don't people stay and why do they want to join in the first place, where's our disconnect? So people come, obviously, because they want to have fun. They want an experience where they can be social, where they can connect with other people, where they can have that experience of doing something well and experiencing success. And success is so personal. Success is so personal for everybody, and it means something different for everybody. But at the end of the day, whether or not you are a high-performing competitive athlete or you are a social bowler, it's all about having fun. And what our research showed us was that people who weren't having fun not because of the game, but because something was happening within the club that they didn't feel welcome or included. And when we started to delve into that, because we're thinking, wow, bowlers are so friendly. Like, that's one of the best things about this sport. Everybody's nice. So how can this be that people aren't having a positive experience? That just didn't seem to compute. So you dig a little deeper. And then you start looking at the culture of bowls and how it's run by volunteers. And volunteerism is shrinking. It's on the decline in Canada. And when we start to look at who our volunteers are in clubs and at provincial associations and within the National Association, they're all the same people. And so we're asking these same people to wear so many hats and do these jobs. Then you keep digging a little more and you look at the sport environment in general, not just bowls, but all not-for-profit, all amateur sport in Canada. And the environment that we operate in now is so different than 20 years ago. And even though we're asking volunteers to run it, the reality is sport is now a business. And that social consumer is looking for a standard that is the same as a for-profit business. So all of these things were coming together, and we realized, one, we are asking our clubs to do things that they're not prepared and don't have the resources to do, because the environment has changed so much in how we deliver an activity. So Belonging in Bowls really came about in saying our ultimate goal is we want to create these welcoming, inclusive spaces where Canadians come to feel connected. And that was part of our vision. We wanted to connect Canadians through bowls, bring them together through bowls. And the club is such a perfect place to do it. So Belonging in Bowls is really about a program where we try to bite-size resources that clubs can use to develop an environment within their club to recruit and retain bowlers. So that means a better experience for the existing member, for the participant who's coming to play, and for the volunteers who are running the club. So I'll take a breath, but I can keep going. So how did that? Any comments or questions?
That's a good explanation. Like as Daryl's sort of saying, we probably didn't do it justice the first time we covered it on the show, because when you read the document from an outside perspective, it's a little intimidating, honestly, to fully digest it, fully understand what it's truly saying. So having your explanation there where you're elaborating on exactly what the program is, why it's there, and what it's kind of trying to help with, that's quite helpful, because again, it was a little bit confusing the first time I read it, but now getting a little bit more background, it helps me understand it definitely a lot better. So thanks for that. That's a good explanation.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so glad for that. And one of the things, we knew it was going to be overwhelming, right? Like just the complexity of the environment in which we're trying to work with is so complex. Like, there's so many moving parts. So how do you break it down? And especially when you know that volunteers are implementing this, and that volunteers are already stretched. And you know what? They joined the club because they wanted to bowl, not necessarily because they want it to work. So the thing that's fun about Belonging in Bowls is that it is bite-sized. So it looks overwhelming when you first look at it. But the idea is that by having that foundation on which everything works, which is the Safe Sport Foundation, because ultimately we want that welcoming, inclusive, and safe environment for everybody. And that's divided into bite-sized pieces for clubs to work through. And if on the belonginginbowls.ca, belonginginbowls.ca website, there's a catalog. And if you download the catalog, it actually steps you through. There's 3 different steps. And within each step, there's bite-sized pieces of how you can go through the program. But I think what's really exciting about it is that there's a resource to support you every step of the way. So when we're looking at that Safe Sport Foundation, there's a whole Safe Sport kit with all kinds of resources that have been developed for clubs that will help you achieve this. When we start looking at the 4 pillars, where we're looking at accessibility, club development, marketing and communication, and diversity and inclusion, we picked those pillars after, this was Jake, our Bulls development manager, Jake Shuknek, did extensive research for 18 months, 2 years, worked with organizations like Bulls New Zealand, Bulls Australia, Bulls England, looked at the Club Matters, Club Sport Excellence, all kinds of different programs that were out there to identify what are the pillars that make a successful sport club. And those are common. Doesn't matter if we're lawn bowls or we're curling or we're broom ball, those pillars are common. And so then from there, we start to look at, well, what are some of those common resources that you need? The club development is really about the governance piece. Do you have the policies and the training available for the people you want to lead your club? When we look at the communications and the marketing, and we want to get into, are you marketing to the group you actually want to attract? And is the group you want to attract and the tools that you're using to market, do those match? When we look into the accessibility piece, Bulls is so accessible. There's a huge market out there of programs that we could be running. What does that look like in a club? And then the diversity and inclusion, we just need to look at the news of the last few weeks and to know how important that is. But that is not easy, and so again, it's about providing resources. So Belonging in Bulls is really about a national brand with a national marketing and communication piece that's going to drive Canadians to clubs that are welcoming and inclusive, and that it's going to support clubs with the tools and the resources to be that product that we all know we can be.
I think that's excellent. I'm going to quickly pivot to the chat here. SLBC, I think that's Sydney Lumberland Club. It says, I love the website. Suggestions. Have a suggestion box on the homepage. Consider having more admin templates like business cards, trifold brochures, and poster examples, and checklists for garage sales. Just thought I'd give you that feedback from chat.
That's awesome. So we do have a number of resources and templates that are already on the site in the members only section. So we launched a new website in the last year. And one of the things that we wanted to provide was a place where we could store things like templates and resources and checklists. And so in order to access the members only, a club needs to contact their provincial association to get their province's login information. And then once you get in there, there's a ton of stuff. So love to hear those suggestions. If you want to send those to office@bullscanada.com, we're always looking for more ideas of how we can provide tools and resources. So that's fantastic. Great suggestions.
I guess if we're just pivoting, gonna throw some different stuff out there. I guess recently we had a after dark discussion about the North American Challenge. We've discussed it a fair bit on our channel here recently, and one of the things that's been talked about is reworking that format, potentially changing up the North American Challenge. So I was wondering, from a Bulls Canada's perspective, has there been sort of some background work being done on that? Is that something that's being discussed, or what's sort of happening with the North American Challenge there?
Yeah, great question. The North American Challenge is so important to Canada. That relationship that we have with Bulls USA, that competition is such a great and important part of our culture. And the opportunity that it provides to us is something that we value highly. That being said, there's a recognition that the current format isn't necessarily working for us. On the Canadian side. So recognizing that it is an important piece of the puzzle for us and for Bowls USA. What we've done is we're actually working on putting together a task force of some representatives from Canada and some representatives from the US, representatives who are made up of coaches, coach, an athlete, an administrator, and a high performance rep. Are going to come together in the next, hopefully, 2 to 3 weeks. We've been working on trying to find a date for like 6 weeks that works for everybody, to discuss what our different options are. And at the same time, recognize that World Bowls, our international federation, has just undergone and put out some new ideas for their international competition format. So then how does that change the landscape for us, for Canada, and for the US? And then look at what do we need these competitions to do for our respective programs. So Canada is a Commonwealth country, so we have that extra competition opportunity of going to the Commonwealth Games. The US is not, so they don't have that opportunity. The US has the US Open. We do not yet have a Canadian Open. So it's then trying to look at what is the purpose of this event for the two programs, making sure it's a meaningful competition so that whoever's there to participate is getting something out of it. It's not just about winning. You know, it's about how is the competition serving you as an athlete, serving you as a coach, serving a program in general. So, you know, we look at the last couple of NACs that we've gone to, 2016 when we hosted in Vancouver, and 2018 when the US hosted in California. And you know, we recognize that our athletes don't have a lot of international opportunity. So if you're a developing athlete, you really don't get a place to play internationally through a team environment until you get selected to a big event. And that means we're not adequately preparing those athletes. So the NAC for us is this fantastic opportunity to develop that team play, to look at that first taste of international competition, to recognize that, yeah, you are going to lose. And part of being a talented high performance athlete is the resilience to come back from that, and to recognize that it's a loss, but it was also a learning opportunity. So what did you take from that and move forward? You know, the 2018 NAC, we used it as an opportunity to certify our coach, Derek Dillon, to become the first certified performance coach. So that was really exciting for us. So it's, as we move forward with this, the NAC has so much opportunity for us, for both nations. You know, it has to be a pivotal piece of our respective high performance programs. It could be a bigger opportunity to promote the game, you know, and to broadcast it. I mean, right now it's, man, I every time we have an NAC, I swear I need to have like a 2-day tutorial on how the scoring's going to work and what it all means. And, you know, it's so complicated. It's not really, it doesn't lend itself to a broadcast because it's so difficult to figure out what each game meant. So I think there's places to grow, and I believe that doing this collaboratively, the two nations together. I mean, it was an event that came together collaboratively, and so when it grows again, it needs to grow collaboratively again.
That's really great. I'm pumped to hear that the NAC is undergoing some review and possibly revision. Usually when you see like a big international event or something, you'll see them post up like the bracket or results and all that kind of stuff. I couldn't imagine throwing up that result sheet and saying, hey, here's how US and Canada is doing, and have anybody understand it.
Yeah, I've never actually played in the NAC, but I've pretty much secondhand heard from everyone in there that you, as Anna said, you need a 3-hour informational video just to understand sort of the basic workings of it. So it's definitely technical. Hopefully that's one of the things that maybe gets reworked when collaboratively the two countries kind of come together and hopefully work on getting something new.
Now, you touched on coaching a bit for the NAC, like having the ability to put coaches in there to possibly get their first taste of international coaching experience, work on certifying people like Derek Dillon, who we've had on the show. You can go and check that interview if you want. Where does coaching fit into Bowls Canada and I guess your strategy for bringing bowls together?
So coaching's pivotal, right? Coaching underpins development without a doubt. And for us, it's about getting qualified coaches across the country to meet the needs of the bowlers that are out there. And then recognizing that different bowlers have different needs. So if we just look at the grassroots development, we know that you want an experienced coach to introduce the game to somebody who's learning. Because an experienced coach is going to be able to understand that it's not about making sure that everybody knows the rules right off the get-go. It's about using the game and using the experience to provide the learning. And from there, introducing, things like rules and tactics in an appropriate way. But that you can have a whole lot of fun. I mean, we just look at the success of Lawn Summer Nights across Canada, and those individuals aren't necessarily playing the truest, purest form of bowls, but they sure are having fun. And that's what having that club coach understand that piece is critical. At the same time, you want to for sure introduce the core, making sure that you're introducing those basic skills in a fundamentally sound way. That was kind of still going.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. From there, we look at competition coach, and competition coach is really about, just as it says, it's about getting that bowler who wants to compete, is looking at improving performance. Then a competition coach is going to be able to take that basic technique, improve it that little bit, but also introduce the tactics and strategies of the game. Then we really start to get into that chess component of bowls and what makes it so exciting. From there, we move into the performance coach, and performance coach is really looking at that bridge of taking that bowler who has their eye on competing internationally, and providing them with the tools and the skills that they need. And by the time you hit performance coach, it's so much more than just delivering a bowl. We're looking at mental training. We're looking at that physical preparation. We're looking at the ability to play 3 long games in heat, 4 or 5 days in a row. And by the 5th day, still being able to implement the same quality of decision making and the same quality of technical ability that you did on day 1. So coaching is key. And growing the number of coaches is important. So I think that, hiring you and hiring Terry Scott as national coaches was sort of our first piece of the coaching equation. In addition to obviously supporting the national coaching certification program is a constant piece of our puzzle. From there, we looked at, so we got you and we got Terry in place, but that's 2. You're in Ontario, Terry's in New Zealand working with coaches or working with his athletes virtually, only being able to come to Canada once a year, working with athletes at an international event. That's not enough. So we need athletes across the country to have that one-on-one interaction as much as possible. So we started the Regional Coaching Network. And we started small because we believe we need to support our coaches and have some resources behind them. So right now we've got 3 regional coaches, one in the East, we've got one in the Prairies, and we've got one on the West Coast. And then Daryl, we have you in Central Canada. But obviously we want to grow this network. Tammy Foster-Vino is working closely with Nova Scotia's provincial coach, Terry O'Neill, and they're looking at, so Tammy's our regional Eastern coach right now. And Tammy's job out there is to not only to be the eyes on the ground for our national coaches and to help implement those programs there, but also to identify and support the talent that exists in Eastern Canada. And she does that in collaboration with Terry O'Neill and his group. And then we look at Mary Wright, who's our regional coach in BC. And Mary's job is similar. Mary also is the regional coach in BC because we have our last singles champion, male champion, Michael Young, came out of BC. He's actually working with Mary to be prepared for champions when it finally we're allowed to participate. And similarly, she will be that kind of touch point, that bridge between the players who are on a national squad. We have a lot of youth squad players out in BC. Davey Matthew, who's the provincial coach in BC, has just done a stellar job developing that youth program and there's a number of coaches in BC at the different clubs who've done some really fantastic work. So Mary's job is to provide that bridge to the national program. So it's all about trying to create communication opportunities, increase transparency. Derek Dillon is our third regional coach. He's in Alberta and he's looking after the Prairie region. He is the provincial coach in Alberta, and we are very fortunate to have the support of Bowls Alberta to share his time. And we're looking at not only helping to support and develop these coaches, but also increase our pool of high performance coaches that could be tapped on to travel internationally. So we have a real, we're looking at, we recognize that we have a real lack of support. We are a small organization, resource-wise. We look at us, and our entire annual budget is about a quarter of what somebody like a Bowls New Zealand's high performance budget is to support coaches. And, so we're not really playing with an equal deck of cards. So we've got to be really canny. We've got to be creative. But I think as Canada, that's something we do well in being that, those crazy Canucks who find a way to solve the problem. So we're really looking at this regional coaching network is a part of that puzzle. Our goal is to have a regional coach in every province. And then from there, to have a regional coach in our more populous areas, to have a regional coach in every populous area where we have a concentration of clubs, so that we are growing that expertise. And then the regional coach, under the regional coach, there would be a network of club coaches and competition coaches who are working in their respective clubs. So really trying to, it's really like a spider web. When we're trying to connect all of these different threads, all coming to a central hub that is Bowls in Canada as a group. That answered the question. I got way off on tangents.
Yeah, you answered all our follow-up ones too, I think. So.
Oh dear, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we had a little bit of the follow-up there, but that actually helps a lot because it does sort of get into what we wanted with, I guess, the spider web, if you're calling that, where you want the regional coaches, maybe each province having a hub or a coaching system sort of in place. Because Daryl and me have talked about in the past, like I'm pursuing my performance coach designation at this point. So it's one of those things where to get a couple performance coaches in each area, club coaches at each club, sort of as you're talking about, it's definitely helpful. And to have the system in place that I know that you guys have put a lot of work into in the last few years, it's definitely very helpful. And I think it's going to be a helpful direction to push things forward going future here.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we're excited to put out another call for attracting people to the Regional Coach Network again. And I think what's really critical about it is, coaching is not easy. Coaching is hard, and it's a commitment. And it's that recognition of trying to provide enough support for those coaches because let's face it, we don't have a culture yet in bowls where you can pay a coach what they're worth for the time that they're putting in. And at some point, I mean, we're all in sport because we love it. None of us are here because we're going to get rich. But at some point, you do need to pay your rent and put food on the table and support your family. And so we've got to carefully balance those things with the requirements of coaching, with the recognition of what we are able to provide in terms of support. But I just think there's so many talented people out there. And Mike, I'm so happy to hear you are pursuing that performance coach program. And I'd like to do a little plug here, because one of the things that we're going to be promoting in the next couple of months is a new program that we're calling a National Team Apprentice Coaching Program. And really from that, the concept is people like yourself who are national team alumni, who have that experience, who have competed, who know the tactics and the strategy, knows what it takes. We want to retain that expertise as coaching and provide support for that group and say, hey, we can help you pay for courses. Hey, we will connect you with a mentor. And through that, grow that network. So, Mees at bowlscanada.com. Drop me an email, Mike, and we can hook you up.
Good to know. I'll definitely have to keep that in mind for the next few months here. I guess we'd sort of talked about it, or you touched on it when you were giving the explanation about sort of the club level, like with the Lawn Summer Nights. So one of the questions we'd sort of prepared here was with clubs and associations in Canada being stuck sort of on that traditional way of playing bowls, or as you're saying, the pure way. And there's a lot of new programs that have been coming out, specifically B Cubed in Regina. Saskatoon's got a sort of a beer league, I guess. There's different types of, I guess, smaller, less or more casual types of bowls being played. So what type of work is being done, or are there any sort of programs that are being made to sort of try and expand that in Canada, or maybe work towards clubs trying to expand that type of a program?
Great question. Such an interesting topic, right? So when earlier I referenced all that research that we were doing, and we were trying to figure out, why are we stagnating, right? And when I say we were stagnating nationally, the reality is that there are provinces who are growing considerably. And so, of course, those become of great interest. Why are they growing while others are shrinking? What's the difference? And when you really start to explore what's happening, it is these creative opportunities. It is going beyond that traditional format of bowls. Whether it's this concept of exploring what I look like. Am I still there?
No, yeah, we froze for a second, but you're good.
I was saying to Daryl, I'm out on a farm right now, working from here for the next week as we do some tend to some family business, and we're really, really sensitive to electrical storms. And of course, this is Ontario in the summer, and it's like super hazy. So I'm like, please, no storms today, no storms. But yeah, so you start to look at that exploration, and then we start to look at, okay, the clubs, the provinces that aren't growing, what does that look like? And then you start to see that it's, pretty narrow, the application of bowls. And it's so funny. When I first started in this job, I'm very fortunate to live on a little crescent in a suburb where neighbors are super active. And when I started in this job, they were all like, yes, hook us up. We want to go try lawn bowls. It's going to be so much fun. And I had to say to them, well, you can't unless you're going to actually buy a membership. So, yes, lots of clubs have these try it opportunities. Come and try it, where you are very supervised to make sure that you don't damage the green and that you don't hurt somebody else and do something inadvertent. But that's not really fun. And so when I explained that to my neighbors, they were like, "Oh, all right then. Let us know if things change." And that's always bothered me, that you can't just go play. If I wanted to go play soccer, completely different. I appreciate that I can pick up a soccer ball and go to a community field and just play soccer. If I wanted to play baseball, I could do the same. If I wanted to curl, so now we're starting to get into that facility-specific participation. If I just wanted to go curling, how could I do that? Well, I could join a social league, which is very similar to what, Mike, you're describing with the B Cubed and with Natana's league that they're running. And I just join the league, curl once a week, and go home. And that's it. But we didn't have that in Long Bowls. So that seemed to be something that was really holding us back. And then we start to look at, I spoke earlier about how sport is evolving in Canada. And part of that evolution is coming from that changing demographic. We've got our social culture has been largely driven by the baby boomer demographic for the last decades because of their size, right? And then you have that traditional Gen X who were so undecided about life in general. And then along came the millennials. And what's really interesting when you start to look into that consumer research, it's the millennials who are driving forces now. And the Gen X's, the older Gen X's do what the baby boomers want them to do, and the younger Gen X's just go along with the millennials because we're just not very good at making decisions, apparently. But so then we look at what does that millennial do, and they don't have the financial resources that the baby boomers do. Quite a lot of them are working 2 or 3 jobs, and when they want to play, it's really important because this is their time to take a break. So they're really looking for that quality activity experience. And they're not looking to volunteer. They don't have time, even if they wanted to. So when we look at the traditional setup of a bowls club, which is buying this annual, almost you could call it a country club type of membership in order to play. And along with that comes the strings to volunteer, because as we've already discussed, without volunteers, the club doesn't run. And now we've got this whole other demographic that's coming up that doesn't want to do those things. That's a concern. And if we don't evolve and adapt, then we know what's going to happen to this sport in the next couple of decades. It will be gone. So we have an opportunity now to evolve and adapt. And the pandemic actually really gave us this opportunity to sit back and reflect on what's happening. So that research that we did last year, one of the things that we asked clubs, we were trying to get a sense of, if we can't play at all, what does this mean for clubs? If we can't look after our greens, what is that going to cost the sport to be able to get it back? And so when we were asking all of these questions, and we were also asking, who comes to your club? Because we're also trying to make a case if governments are going to have to pick and choose the activities that relaunch and recover out of this pandemic, they're obviously going to pick ones that are going to have the most social impact for their communities. So we were very concerned about making that case of a social impact. So we asked clubs, how many members do you have, but also how many people come through your gates? Are you doing corporate programs? Are you going out to schools? Are you opening your doors? Do you have the ability to open your doors in the winter to the bridge club or the chess club or knitting clubs? How many Canadians are impacted? And what we found out was we had over 50% of the clubs in Canada responded to our survey, and of those 50%, they told us a total of 100,000 Canadians are coming through their gates through various programs. And yet when we look at our membership, the members that we actually count, we've got just under 14,000. That's a pretty significant difference, 14,000 to 100,000. And if we're looking at then extrapolating beyond to the clubs that didn't answer, I mean, we could probably easily say that there's close to 200,000 Canadians coming through our doors. Now, if we then start to look at what would happen if we provided more opportunities like the Lawn Summer Nights for people just to come play, not to come and be told, that group that doesn't want to compete, that's not interested in that podium pathway. So they don't necessarily want to know the tactics and the strategies yet. They just want to play. So if we can provide opportunities for them, we know our consumer research tells us they're willing to pay. They're willing to pay to do this. And they're willing to pay more than an annual membership just to have a no strings fun opportunity. So now how can we take that and turn it into something that then allows a club to hire a staff person to run these programs so we're not tapping out volunteers? And when we talk about what is the program that we're trying to put in place, part of that's belonging in bowls. And when we look at that club development and that marketing and communication piece and the diversity and inclusion, all of that is getting clubs to explore, what is my neighborhood? What makes sense for us? Where do we have places where our greens are standing empty? I mean, it is the worst to drive by. We have 5 clubs in the greater Ottawa area. And to drive by one of those clubs in the summer and it's empty, it's the worst. Like, our greens should be full every hour of the day, and yes, okay, maybe not at noon when it's super, super hot, but there's so many opportunities there. So yeah, I said I wasn't going to ramble on, and look at what I'm doing. I'm a little bit too passionate about this stuff. So
I think what you've said makes a lot of sense. I think one of my things that I always talk about is why are greens standing dormant or empty when it's a money-making opportunity? And like you said, a lot of it comes down to volunteers. People, when I see emails going around of who can cover this league and who wants to do Fridays and who wants to do Thursdays and all this stuff, it's a very small group of people that do it, and they can't spread themselves over every day, every hour of the day. So there's times when the club is closed, when there's people at the park and there's people walking by, where you just want a chance to say, come through the fence and just take a look. Yeah, and we're missing so many opportunities just doing that. But like you said, it comes down to volunteers, and people just can't do everything all the time.
No. Well, one of the programs that Jake Schucknacht, our Bulls development manager, was working on before the pandemic was a workshop that we called the Club Development Workshop. And in it, he had this really neat exercise that looked at, who do you want to come play? What spaces do you have available for activity? So during the day or during the week, who would you like to fill it with? So what is the market that's around your neighborhood that could conceivably come and play? What are the resources you need to support it? And now how much do you need to charge to have those resources? Because, bowls is so undervalued, and it is without a doubt the cheapest game out there. When you think about what you pay to go play a round of golf, what you pay for a curling, a social league, and then what we pay in bowls, it's just not comparable. And until we start to truly value the product that we have to offer, we won't be able to hire the resources to run these programs. So it's a real chicken and an egg opportunity here. But, Jake is actually working on taking that workshop, which was originally dependent on a face-to-face delivery. And he's actually right now developing a request for proposal to have all of those activities developed and translated into an online learning opportunity that we would be able to offer to our clubs, so that every club would have the opportunity to go through these exercises, get the business tools, get the marketing tools, look at the governance piece. And the nice thing is that all connects to the Belonging in Bowls program as well.
Well, Anna, I think we've taken a lot of your time. We've heard a ton about the programs that Bowls Canada is putting forward. Great answers to questions, information for everybody to take a look at. Well, we're hoping that if you're here watching the show, or if you're watching on YouTube, share this with your clubs, share this with the people in your province. Let them know that this program is on and that we have great guests like Anna Mees coming on to promote bowls and explain exactly what's going on in your country, so you're well informed and your club knows exactly what's going on. So with that, Anna, thank you so much for being on the show, for being a willing participant, and have a great rest of your day, and we hope that we can have you on again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunities. I said it was a fan experience, so thank you. This was great. I love chatting about bowls all the time, so this was super. Thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in, Anna.
All right, and bowlscanada.com, belonginginbowls.ca, and you can always reach us through office@bowlscanada.com. My last flex.
There you go. And just so you know, Jake Shuknik is in the chat, so if you have questions that weren't answered, or if you need some more information, let Jake know, and he can point you in the right direction.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Anna.
Bye, Anna.
Bye.
What a great interview.
Yes, that was fun. Oh, so much information, but important information that we needed to sort of get out there and get those questions asked. So that was great.
Absolutely. I was so happy when Anna said she was willing to come on. I knew there would be a ton of questions and a ton of information. Like, we didn't get through all of the questions that we had, but maybe we can save them for another opportunity to talk to her. Maybe when some of these programs have matured a little bit and we can see some of the results, she can come back and just give us a snapshot of what's going on and just how things are going.
Yeah, that's probably a good call there. Maybe when we do have a little more data or a little more information, it's one of those things where get a little more, I guess, exact information from her. So that'd be definitely something we should be looking into down the line.
Absolutely. So on to some of the news that's come out recently. We just want to do a quick touch point. We know that the show has gone a little bit longer than normal. But that's probably because Mike and I are on and Luke's not cutting everybody off. So I think Luke's in chat, but we'll see. UBC week is canceled. Didn't see that coming. I can honestly say, with Canada opening up, and I mean, me being in Ontario, where it's been a contested region for the COVID lockdowns all over the place, we are slowly opening up, but over there in Australia, where things have been relatively good, they've had to cancel UBC, the Ultimate Bowls Championship.
Yeah, it's kind of been a opposite effect is what we're having here, where it seems Canada's got everything opening up. The last month or so seems we've kind of had most provinces slowly pulling things back. Australia, I think even it was the Australian Championships or something along those lines was canceled about a month ago, and then now UBC week. So kind of the opposite hemisphere has, I guess, the opposite results is what we're currently looking at. And as you say, it's a bit of a shock to see a large event like the UBC week being canceled, but with all the restrictions, and it sounds like they're not doing particularly well with their case counts and everything like that. So it's understandable, because we were probably in that same scenario here in Canada 6 to 8 months ago. So I get it. It's just very unfortunate, obviously, to see a big event like that, an exciting event, canceled. It
is. I was excited to see what was going to happen, especially with all that stuff happening in that week. They had a ton of stuff planned. The big thing that I found when I did a little research, the vaccination counts. So Canada, let's say we're between 50 and 60% on the vaccine scale. And when I looked at Australia and New Zealand, their in the tens to teens,
Mhm.
where they haven't rolled out vaccines widely, and people haven't got their shots and been fully vaccinated. So whenever something like this comes up, it's like instant lockdown, and this is the stuff that happens, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of rabbit hole to dive into if you ever do start reading about the vaccination rates in Australia and New Zealand, because it seems like they have a very low uptake, as you're saying, where people, I guess, haven't seen the bad side of it so much as kind of the Northern Hemisphere has, and they don't have that, I guess, inclining that they need to go get their shot or that they don't need to go get it because they haven't really had as much of the lockdowns as North America, I guess, specifically that we had. So we'll see how it sort of develops. I hope it's something that just kind of passes over time here and they sort of creep up their vaccination rate too and maybe kind of get back to a normal.
I hope so, because they provide some of the top bowls events that we can watch. So it's always nice to see stuff come out of Australia. We hate to see stuff canceled.
Definitely.
Next thing, Canada opening up. We kind of touched on it, but I can say from here in Ontario, I am so thankful that we're moving into kind of a stage 3, more indoor stuff, more outdoor stuff. Our club, my club particularly, is finally planning some small events, whether it's for the club or for our area, to actually have people come and bowl, doing a lot more registration and having a lot more people on the greens. So we are seeing people bowl, we're seeing people get on the greens. It's really, really great to see. How are things out in Saskatchewan?
Very well, actually. It's an exciting weekend here because it's actually our provincials, whatever you want to call them. So they split Saskatchewan into a north and a south zone to try and limit the numbers of people. And we actually have that running this weekend. So it's men and women's pairs and actually quite a good turnout. I was in Saskatoon yesterday, which is considered the north zone. I'm from Regina, which is the south zone. And I actually went by the greens in Saskatoon and they had quite a few players, both men and women. And then I watched the games on Friday because my mom's in the women's draw, and we had quite a few teams, men and women. So it's very good turnout, both
Nice.
north and south zones, and it's an interesting format to play down just in your area. And the provincial championship is in late August, kind of around when we typically have nationals. So they'll be interesting to see how they sort of have that all come together. But very exciting here to have that sort of competition starting up again and see people back on the greens. It was nice to start seeing everyone.
That's awesome.
And like I think like if we're talking about Canada opening up, I know that the Maritimes, they've started to have quite a bit of bowling start to, like I think I saw there was a tournament in Nova Scotia there yesterday that the Rock Lobster Cameron ended up winning a tournament out of Nova Scotia. And then I think John Siteman was posting photos that he's in New Brunswick playing in a tournament as well. So definitely sounds like there's tournaments and different things going on all across Canada. And it's great to see stuff opening up because it's been far too long. Feels like we've been cooped up for way too long.
It has. I can honestly say I actually went out and rolled a few bowls. It's been a long time. I was terrible. But hopefully with this opening up, I'll be able to get out onto the greens and do some filming of videos, and we can put out some coaching and drills and all kinds of fun stuff for you guys to pick up. So that's exciting too.
Yeah, it gives a lot more of an opportunity. Me and you've been chatting for a year, I think, of all these different videos we want to go make, and it's like, oh, well, I can't go make it really. So now that we've got the bit more of an opportunity, it's going to be exciting to do that.
Absolutely.
Nice looking in the chat. If we're covering coast to coast, Sydney Lawn Bowling Club has been bowling 7 days a week. So
Awesome.
there we go. We have updates from even BC now. They're bowling out there too. So it's exciting. Essentially, Canada's kind of pulling it back and getting out there again. So hopefully it'll be a good summer for everyone. Get some play in, different tournaments, everything like that.
Yeah, it'll be nice to get outside. And I can tell you, usually I'd be like well seasoned through the heat. I go out to mow my lawn, or I go out to do something when it's really hot, and it's unbearable. Usually I'd be like, okay, I bowl in this regularly, but I've been cooped up in this house too long, so the heat is really getting to me.
Yesterday was about 35 here in Regina and Saskatoon, and I went outside and I was like, no, this is not fun. I don't want to bowl in this right now. I got to get back my tolerance, I guess.
Absolutely. So turning off of that, we have some, I guess, breaking news from this week and something that I saw this morning. Not a fun topic, but I think we can talk about it because Anna touched on safe sport and how we want lawn bowls to be inclusive, safe for everybody, a welcoming experience to the club. But a news article came out from New Zealand. I think I've got a link in it in the description below. It's from their news media outlet Stuff. Gary Lawson has been accused of some pretty negative things, harassment, homophobic slurs, and so forth, and he's being investigated by Bulls New Zealand. Now, just to start off, these are accusations that there's no, I guess, clear-cut
charges or
ruling
anything
on it. But what do you think, Mike?
Definitely not a good look. Like, I know Gary's had some negativity in the past with, I think it was the match fixing scandal, 2009, I think it was, where he deliberately threw games at the Asia Pacific so that Canada wouldn't make the quarterfinals of an event. So he's had some, I guess, a checkered past per se. And I was reading the articles that you sent me, and it definitely doesn't sound particularly good. They've got like samples of things that he might have been saying or been doing that have been very questionable. So with the whole safe sport linkage there, like, that's definitely why it's important to have kind of that inclusive, welcoming group, because if you're obviously harassing people, that's going to get a lot of people out of the sport and kind of think them negatively, especially if you're getting on the homophobic side of things too. That's definitely not something that a sport or anybody really wants to go towards in general.
And I think the reason we bring this up is not to point a finger at it. You can read the article below and see what's been posted. The reason we want to bring it up is we feel it is so important to be inclusive, respectful, and a welcoming environment at our clubs. We've said it time and time again. Someone can come to our club and have 100 positive experiences, great members, great teammates, fun social interaction, and it only takes that one really bad incident and they're gone. And that's not what we want. We want them to stay and be a part of our club and have it be such a positive and safe place to come and play and fun. Really, at the end of the day, it's just to have fun. So having any negative stuff like that is really unfortunate for our sport.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess that's kind of all I think we had on the docket there. Like, looking at my list of notes, I think that's about all we wanted to cover. Do you have anything else you want to talk about, Daryl?
No, I think that's great. Anna was in the chat saying thanks for the opportunity to chat. Anna, thanks for coming on and being part of the show. Guys, we're trying to grow the show. We're trying to get to 1,000. So share, tell your friends, tell your club, make sure people come on. Like Mike said at the beginning, we have 95% of people not subscribed versus 5% of those that watch all of our videos. So every single one of those subscriptions makes a huge difference. So I'll toss it off to you, Mike, to close the show.
Yeah, no, thanks everyone for watching, and may all your bowls be touchers.